Welcome to Pink Blade. Here, we don't just watch stories, we step inside them. Today, we're diving deep into Bridgerton Season 4, Episode 3.
It really is the episode that changes the entire trajectory of the season. It's the breath before the plunge.
It is. It's also the episode where the showrunners decided to, strand our main couple in the middle of the British countryside, remove all the chaperones, and just see what happens when the politeness stops.
And the masks come off. Literally and figuratively.
We are talking about the field next to the other road. And honestly, looking at the sheer volume of notes we have today, from directorial choices to lighting to the very specific way a kite is flown, this isn't just some romantic interlude.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
This is a structural pivot point for the entire series.
It really is. We have a massive stack of sources today. We're pulling from critical reviews in places like Mashable and Fangirlish, some really deep production notes from Shondaland about the cinematography, and of course the fan discourse, which has been absolutely on fire about the symbolism in this hour.
It's what we sometimes call a bottle episode in spirit, even if they aren't confined to a single room. It isolates the characters to force development that simply cannot happen in the crowded, judgmental ballrooms of London.
Exactly. But before we get to the wet shirts and the fever dreams, and believe me, we will get to them, we have to set the stage. Because the setting here isn't just a backdrop.
No, it's an antagonist and a protagonist all at once.
You're referring to the shift from Mayfair to My Cottage.
My Cottage, which is, of course, the most Bridgerton way of saying a sprawling country estate.
I still laugh every time I say it. But yes, let's talk about the mission of this deep dive. We are not just recapping the plot. We need to understand why this isolation is so necessary for the story. We need to unpack this concept of the liminal space and how it fundamentally alters human psychology.
And we absolutely have to dissect the Maid Wars, which is, I'm just going to say it, the best reality show within a show I've ever seen.
Oh, it's brilliant. And then we're going to do a really granular analysis of three key scenes. The fever, the kite, and the lake.
And through all that, we have to answer the big question. Why is this specific moment in time the single most dangerous point in Sophie Bake's life?
Let's start right there. The social world. We open this episode in a state of transition. We are physically leaving the high-pressure vacuum of Mayfair. And listeners, you know the drill in Mayfair. It's geometry, it's rules, it's eyes watching you from every corner.
It's a panopticon. You are always being observed, and therefore you are always performing. Your every move, your every word, it's all for an audience.
Right, and then we travel to the country, to My Cottage, and the atmosphere just completely shifts. In the sources, this is referred to as a liminal space. Now, I know we throw that term around in film criticism a lot, usually meaning a hallway or airport, but how does it apply here in the middle of a field?
Well, think about the literary tradition of the green world. You see it in Shakespeare all the time, like in A Midsummer Night's Dream. Characters leave the rigid, structured court, the city, and they go into the forest.
And in the forest, all the rules break down.
Exactly. Social hierarchies are suspended, identities become fluid. A queen can fall in love with a donkey-headed man. My Cottage is that forest. It is a fundamental suspension of reality.
It's a bubble.
It is a bubble. It's a space where the rigid rules of the ton, the rules that say a Bridgerton, a son of a Viscount, absolutely cannot fraternize with a maid, are temporarily lifted.
But, and this is the key tension of the episode, they aren't gone.
No, not at all. The real world is still visible on the horizon. It's like being in the eye of a storm. It's calm where you are, but you can see that wall of wind spinning just beyond the fields. You know you have to go back into it eventually.
And that creates two completely different experiences for our two leads. This is what I found so compelling in the rewatch. For Benedict, this shift to the liminal space is, well, it's a vacation.
It's a holiday. It's an adventure. For Benedict, this is a respite from his crisis of purpose. He's been struggling all season with his artistic identity, caught between the fantasy of his lady in silver and the, hard reality of his name and his duties.
So the cottage lets him play.
It lets him play house. He's safe. It's his family's property. There are no real consequences for him here. The worst thing that happens to him is he gets a rather dramatic fever, but we'll get to that.
But for Sophie, it's a horror movie.
It is a high-wire act without a safety net. And I think modern audiences, we can sometimes miss just how high the stakes are because we view it through a modern romantic lens.
We see forced proximity trope and get excited.
Right. We think, ooh, only one bed. But for Sophie, in her time, this is existential danger. It is the single most perilous situation she could be in.
We have to talk about the economics of ruin, because the sources really, really emphasize this. A single night spent unchaperoned with a gentleman of his station could ruin her reputation for life.
And ruin doesn't just mean people whisper about you at parties. That's what it means for a lady of the ton. For a woman of the working class or a woman in Sophie's precarious position as a lady's maid, her reputation is her currency. It is her resume. It is her entire livelihood.
If she is ruined, she is unhireable. It's not just a social stain, it's an economic death sentence.
Exactly. No respectable house will take her. And if she can't work, she doesn't eat. She doesn't have a home. She ends up on the street. So while Benedict is there, thinking about poetry and feeling a connection, Sophie is hyper aware that every single second she remains in that house, she is risking total social annihilation.
It creates this incredible friction in every scene. He is relaxed, she is terrified, he is playing, she is surviving. And the show brilliantly mirrors this class divide with what's happening back in London. Can we please talk about the Maid Wars?
Oh, please. It is the subplot that absolutely steals the show.
It's so fascinating because usually the downstairs staff are just background players. They open doors, they pour tea, they fade into the wallpaper. But here we see the invisible foundation of the aristocracy start to crumble.
It's a labor crisis in miniature. Sophie leaving her previous post, where she was highly competent, creates a vacuum. Suddenly, there aren't enough qualified, experienced ladies' maids to go around. And what happens in any market when demand outstrips supply?
The price goes up, and the power shifts.
And we see this play out in the epic battle between Portia Featherington and Varley.
Varley, the unsung hero of the Featherington Empire. The one who knows everything.
Truly. Varley has been with the family for 20 years. She knows where the bodies are buried metaphorically and perhaps, given the Featherington history, literally. And she finally decides she's had enough. She demands a wage increase.
A completely reasonable demand after 2 decades of service. And Portia, being Portia, just scoffs. She refuses. She thinks she holds all the power because she holds the title and the purse strings, however frayed they may be.
But then reality sets in. Varley realizes her value in a competitive market. She knows that other families with more money and less drama, would kill to have her skills, her discretion. It's a moment of what the critics called quiet power.
It's so well done. The show is demonstrating, not just telling us, that the upstairs world, the world of balls and gowns and social climbing, is entirely dependent on the downstairs world to function.
Without Varley, Portia can't dress herself properly. She can't run her household. Her dignity, her entire public performance, evaporates.
And that thematic resonance strikes right back at the cottage, doesn't it? Just as Portia is rendered helpless without Varley, we are about to see Benedict, a Bridgerton, rendered utterly helpless without Sophie.
It proves that the class divide is an artificial construct, but the dependency, that is very, very real. The invisible labor isn't just about cleaning floors. It's about maintaining the entire illusion of the upper class.
Which brings us to the structure of the episode itself. Why is this the hook? We are in episode 3. Usually, this is where we are just settling into the season's rhythm, the round of balls and collars. Why pull the ripcord and strand them in the country now?
Because it's the pivot from phantom to person.
That's the perfect way to phrase it.
Up until this moment, Benedict has been in love with a ghost. He is obsessed with the lady in silver. She's a mask. She's a mystery. She represents everything he thinks he wants. Art, freedom, defiance.
But you can't have a relationship with a symbol.
No, symbols don't talk back. They don't have opinions. They don't have needs. They definitely don't get sick or have to figure out how to start a fire. This episode forces Benedict to stop looking at the mask and start looking at the woman.
By stripping away the costumes, the ballroom, the whole performance of it all, he has to engage with Sophie Bake, flesh and blood.
And she is a specific person. She has skills. She knows how to fix things. She knows how to heal wounds. She's resourceful. She has a history. She has a personality that isn't just mysterious lady. She's sharp. She's wary. She's kind.
And crucially, this pivot isn't just happening for the young lovers. The show does something very, very smart by mirroring this arc with Violet Bridgerton.
The second spring. I saw so much love for this on the forums. The Vicus agenda, that's Violet and Marcus Anderson, is in full swing.
And it's so earned. It's a beautiful parallel. Violet admits in this episode out loud to being emotionally dormant since Edmund's death. That is a massive admission.
It is. For seasons, she has been the archetype of the mother, the matriarch, the widow. She exists to facilitate her children's lives and their happiness.
She's been the manager of the Bridgerton heart, but she hasn't tended to her own garden at all.
And here, in this quiet moment with Lord Marcus Anderson, she confesses feelings. She signals that she is no longer just a function of the plot, she is a woman seeking her own happiness. And that hooks the audience because it defies expectation.
Right. We expect the young, hot people to fall in love. That's the brand. We don't always expect the matriarch to turn to the camera, so to speak, and say, my story is not over. I am not done yet.
It's telling us that love is about discovery, whether you're 20 or 50, whether it's improper because of class or unexpected because of age. It's the same journey of vulnerability.
So we have the stage set. The stakes are sky high, the location is isolated, and the masks are finally coming off.
Yeah.
Now we have to dive into the specific scenes where this transformation actually happens.
Yes. The deep dive into the key scenes. There are 3 distinct beats in this episode that act like stepping stones across a river. You miss one, you fall in.
And the very first stone is the fever watch.
Scene 1. The setup is straightforward. Benedict is injured while fixing something, a very non-aristocratic activity. He has a gash, infection sets in, and the fever hits him like a freight train.
And instantly, the rakish hero trope is completely dismantled. Usually in these romances, even when the hero is hurt, he's hurt in a sexy way. You know, he's brooding, he's stoic.
Right. A single, elegant drop of blood perfectly placed on a crisp white shirt. He can still deliver a witty line through gritted teeth.
Exactly. But here, Benedict is writhing in pain, he is delirious, he is sweaty, and not in the photo shoot way. He is rendered completely and utterly helpless. He's pathetic in the classic sense of the word. He evokes pathos.
And the power dynamic flips a full 180 degrees. Sophie takes charge. And can we talk for a second about her breaking in through the window?
That moment is so pivotal. It shows her resourcefulness, her agency. She doesn't wait for permission. She doesn't stand outside wringing her hands. She sees a problem, and she solves it.
She breaks in, she assesses the wound, she makes the poultice from memory, she becomes the caretaker. She is the one with the knowledge and the capability.
It creates an intimacy that is totally different from the ballroom. You called it intimacy without performance. I love that.
Yes. When they met at the masquerade, everything was a performance. The witty banter, the dancing, the hidden identities. It was a game they were both playing. Here, there is no game.
He's too sick to be charming.
And she's too busy saving his life to be deferential or coy. They are just 2 human bodies in a room, one in desperate need and the other providing care. It's the most elemental form of connection.
Yeah, within that fever, we get the vision. That crucial moment where Benedict, in his delirium, briefly confuses Sophie for the lady in silver.
That is the blurring of the lines. It's the collision of his fantasy and his reality happening right before our eyes. He reaches out for the ghost, for the symbol he's been chasing, but the hand that holds him is real.
The hand that's wiping his brow is real.
It highlights the tragedy of his position. He is chasing a dream while the reality is right there, caring for him, and he can't quite reconcile the two yet. His mind is trying to merge them into one.
Which leads us out of the darkness and the claustrophobia of the sick room and into the wide-open light of scene 2. The kite flying.
The inner child scene.
This scene felt so un-Bridgerton in the best way possible.
Yeah.
We're used to promenades. We are used to horse riding. We're used to very rigid, structured forms of leisure. But flying a kite is just pure play.
It is, and you have to consider who these 2 people are. Benedict is a second son, constantly feeling crushed under the weight of finding a purpose and upholding the family duty. He's forgotten how to just be.
And Sophie's an orphan who has been systematically abused and treated as a servant by her own stepmother. I mean, when did she ever have a chance to just be a child?
She never did. So when they are out in that field running and laughing with this kite, they aren't a Bridgerton and a Maid. For those few minutes, they are just 2 kids.
They are healing their inner children together. It strips them of all pretense. You can't be haughty or guarded when you are running through mud, getting tangled in string, trying to get a piece of paper to fly.
And Benedict even says it. He calls the experience restorative. He recognizes on some level that this is something his soul has been missing.
The metaphor is just beautiful. The kite itself represents their connection. Think about the mechanics of flying a kite. It requires effort to launch. You have to run against the wind.
Just like they have to fight against the society they live in, the ton is the wind.
It's the resistance. But if you hold on and the tension is right, it soars. It becomes this beautiful thing, free for a moment. It shows that the relationship isn't just about sexual tension or this kind of trauma bonding over his fever.
No, it's about a shared capacity for joy. They make each other laugh. They make each other feel light.
Which is the most dangerous thing of all, really. Because if you can laugh with someone, if you can play with them, you can build a life with them, the thought must be terrifying for Sophie.
Precisely. And that joy, that lightness, it lowers their defenses just enough for what comes next. For scene 3, the lake scene.
The collision. Okay, we have to address the elephant, or I suppose the wet shirt in the room. The visual homage to Pride and Prejudice is so clear, so intentional.
It is. The Colin Firth lake scene is iconic. It's baked into the DNA of the romance canon. But what I love about what the show does here is how it subverts it.
Yes, talk about that. Because in Pride and Prejudice, Darcy diving into the lake is all about repression.
Yeah.
He's trying to cool off his burning, inconvenient passion. He emerges and he's embarrassed, he's awkward, he's brooding.
Benedict is having the time of his life.
He's not repressed at all. He's swimming, he's splashing. It's an act of joy, not of desperation. And when he catches Sophie looking at him,
he doesn't hide. He doesn't cover up in shame. He teases her. He invites the gaze. It's unabashedly playful. It's that rakish charm coming back. But it's grounded now in the intimacy they built during the fever and the kite flying. It's not just a performance anymore.
it's the Darcy moment, remixed for a character who isn't repressed, but rather searching for freedom. And it leads, inevitably, to the kiss.
The first kiss without masks, without subterfuge.
It's electric. It feels so earned after everything they've been through in this bubble. But what stuck with me, and what the sources really focused on, was what happened in the seconds immediately after.
The reality check. The fall back to earth.
The bubble pops, they kiss, and for that 1 second, the world is perfect. It makes sense. And then they pull apart. And Sophie does something very, very specific. She reaches up and puts her simple necklace back on.
It's a devastating detail. The sources describe this as Sophie reclaiming the armor of her position. That necklace, which is likely part of her uniform or just a simple signifier of her status, it's the shackle. She's putting the shackle back on.
It's the visual cue that says the holiday is over, the game is done.
They have to return to their roles. The kiss was the peak of the fantasy, the absolute zenith of what was possible in that liminal space. But as soon as the physical contact breaks, the social rules, the reality of their situation just rushes back like air into a vacuum.
It's heartbreaking. The show gives us this incredible high and then immediately shows us the solid brick wall they just ran into.
And that emotional whiplash is so brilliantly supported by how this episode was actually made. We should look at the behind-the-scenes insights because the directorial philosophy here was so intentional.
Tom Verica, the director and executive producer, made some really bold choices with the camera to tell this story of class difference visually.
He did. This idea of a visual language of class is something they really leaned into for this specific episode. Verica apparently used handheld cameras for almost all the downstairs scenes, the maid wars, the servants' quarters back in London.
Which gives it that shaky, energetic, almost documentary-like feel.
He said in an interview he wanted vibrancy, looseness, and a little chaos. The world of the servants is dynamic. It's constantly moving. It's alive with gossip and movement and struggle.
And then you cut to the Bridgerton drawing rooms.
And the camera's locked off. It's on a tripod or a steady cam. The shots are still. They're symmetrical. It conveys stillness.
And rigidity, a kind of beautiful prism.
Exactly. The upper class is frozen in their perfection. The working class is messy but alive. It visually reinforces the central conflict. Benedict is coming from a frozen, static world into Sophie's chaotic, living one.
Verica also talked about treating this episode almost like a standalone movie.
A separate film within the season was his term for it, and you feel that because they were shooting on location, away from the usual sound stages, the lighting is different. The texture of the air, the sounds of nature, it all feels different.
Speaking of location, my cottage. We have to go back to that.
Lightly, the production joke that made it into the show.
It's just so absurd. It's magic.
The script calls it a cottage. So you imagine, a cozy little thatched roof, maybe 2 rooms. But the location scout found this sprawling estate. Tony Hood, the location manager, has this great quote where he says, "Nothing is small in Bridgerton."
Which is very true. But even though it's a joke, narratively it works, doesn't it?
Oh, it works perfectly. It serves as a constant, unspoken reminder of Benedict's privilege. Even his humble retreat, his rustic cabin, is a palace to 99% of the population. To Sophie, who has nothing, this cottage is a display of immense, almost unimaginable wealth.
It just underscores the gap between them at every turn. He thinks he's roughing it, she sees a castle. And the location itself acts as a character. It's isolated, it's lush, it's green, it's removed from the rigid geometry of London.
And we can't ignore the soundscape. The music choices in Bridgerton are always a character of their own, but especially in this episode.
The needle drop. We have to talk about the instrumental cover of Paramore's All I Wanted.
It's an inspired choice. It's played on strings, so it fits the world. But if you know the lyrics to the original song, it is absolutely devastating.
All I wanted was you. Just that one line repeating in your head.
And it plays in the carriage, in the coda of the episode. They are leaving the cottage. They are returning to London. The rain is falling again, mirroring their mood, and the song just swells up.
The placement is what kills me. It's not playing during the kiss, during the moment of triumph. It's playing during the retreat.
Because it underscores the yearning, the tragedy. The central theme of the song is wanting something you cannot have. Despite the fever, despite the kite, despite the lake, they are going back to a world where they cannot be together. The song is the sound of the door closing on the fantasy.
It's just pure distilled yearning. And speaking of yearning, the actors really had to sell that. We have some fantastic reflections from the cast and creators on how they built this dynamic.
Tom Verica spoke about the challenge of the class difference trope. It's a staple of period drama. You've seen it in Downton Abbey, Upstairs, Downstairs. We've seen the Lord and the Maid story before.
So the question is, how do they make it fresh? How do they make it feel specific to these two?
By focusing on the discovery phase in total isolation, Verica's goal was to make this forbidden love unique to Benedict and Sophie by taking society out of the equation just for a moment. They didn't fall in love because it was forbidden. They fell in love because they connected as people and then remembered it was forbidden.
Luke Thompson, who plays Benedict, had some very funny insights on filming the lake scene.
Of course he did. He reflected on the Mr. Darcy comparisons, which are inevitable. But he also talked about the physical reality. It looks so steamy and hot and romantic on camera. But in reality, that is a British lake in the spring. It was freezing cold.
So he's shivering, his teeth are probably chattering, and he has to look like a seductive water god emerging from the mist.
That is the magic of acting, right there. But Yaren Ha, who plays Sophie, she touched on something I thought was deeper. She talked about trust.
Right. She noted that she and Luke were both new to this specific dynamic. Luke has been on the show for years, of course, but this is his first time carrying the central romantic plot. And Yaren is a newcomer to the whole universe.
So the actors themselves were feeling their way through a new dynamic, just like the characters were.
That's a great point. They were finding their footing together.
Exactly. She said that shared experience mirrored the characters' journey. They had to build real trust between takes to be able to portray that intense push and pull of yearning so believably on screen.
And it absolutely translates. You believe they are discovering each other in real time.
Yeah.
Now, I want to pivot to the audience, because the reaction to this episode has been, well, it's been loud.
The internet has thoughts. Many, many thoughts.
Let's talk about the Vicus appreciation again, because it's been a huge part of the conversation.
It's massive. Fans are just so invested in Violet and Marcus. They're celebrating the representation of finding love again later in life. There is so much praise for Ruth Gemmel's performance. They love seeing Violet flustered and vulnerable.
It humanizes her so much. For so long, she's been the font of all wisdom, the unshakable matriarch. Seeing her get butterflies and stumble over her words it's lovely.
And then on the complete opposite end of the romantic spectrum, we have the pinnacle discourse.
Amused of Francesca, our little researcher.
This was the much-needed comedic relief of the episode. Francesca's very logical, very determined quest to understand the pinnacle of marital intimacy.
Which is, of course, the most delicate Bridgertonese for saying she's trying to figure out what an orgasm is.
And Violet completely, utterly fails to explain it to her. The scene is so awkward, it's so vague, and fans just loved the contrast between that stilted mother-daughter talk and the conversation Francesca later has with Penelope, which is so honest and direct.
It perfectly highlights the era's failure to educate women about their own bodies and their own pleasure. But fans really latched onto Francesca's determination. She approaches sex like it's a scientific research project she needs to complete.
It fits her character perfectly. And then there was the reaction to the Maid Wars.
Viewers were loving the fresh spin.
Yeah.
It's so rare to see the downstairs characters have this much bite, this much agency.
There is a real appreciation for it. Watching Portia Featherington, who is usually the master manipulator, the one pulling all the strings, get so thoroughly outmaneuvered by Varley was a moment of deep catharsis for the audience. It validates the importance of that invisible labor we were talking about earlier.
And finally, the symbolism of the kite scene.
Fans really, really picked up on the healing their inner children aspect of that. There was a consensus online that the episode successfully slowed the pace. Bridgerton can be very fast, very melodramatic, jumping from one ball to the next.
Right, but taking a full scene to just fly a kite.
It grounded the emotion. It made the romance feel earned, not just inevitable, because they're the two leads of the season. It gave it roots.
So we've broken down the social world, the key scenes, the production choices, and the fan reaction. But we need to land this plane. If we look at this episode as one complete package, what is the big thematic question it leaves us, the audience, with?
I think the question is a simple one, but a profound one. Can love survive without a mask?
That's the core of it, isn't it? Everything comes back to that.
The episode posits that Benedict and Sophie's love is real and functional only in suspension. It works when the rules of the world are paused. It works at the cottage, where he isn't Lord Bridgerton's son and she isn't just a maid. They're just Benedict and Sophie.
But they can't stay at the cottage forever.
No, they have to leave. And as that carriage rolls back toward London, the audience is left with this gnawing doubt. Is their connection, this thing that felt so real and pure in isolation, strong enough to survive the armor of their respective stations?
When he has to put the cravat back on, and she has to put the apron back on, are they strangers again? Is it all erased?
That is the fear. The final thought this episode leaves us with is that love isn't just about passion, that's the lake scene, or about care, that's the fever scene. It is about courage. It is about the courage to exist in the real world together, unprotected by the bubble of the liminal space.
And the episode leaves us wondering if Benedict is brave enough to choose the person over the position.
And if Sophie is brave enough to trust him with her ruin. Because for him, it's a choice of lifestyle, of reputation. For her, it's a choice of life or death.
That is the inequity they have to overcome. And that is why this episode is the true turning point. Before this, it was a flirtation with a phantom. Now it's a real problem they have to solve.
Well, my heart is certainly stressed out, but I'm ready for the next chapter. It really does feel like the calm before the storm.
And knowing Bridgerton, the storm is definitely coming. Thanks for listening to Pink Blight. If this episode revealed something new, you can follow to explore the next chapter. And if a moment stayed with you, share it in the comments. Until next time, this is Pink Blight.